So recently I told somebody that my day job was software engineering, and they asked me, so why do you work on board games? Don't you have the skill set to make video games? And I do. And I have worked on video games. Nothing like finished, but I worked on some stuff to get to the point where I was able to play test it. But there's actually a few reasons why I found myself losing interest in that, and feeling myself more drawn towards board games as a medium. For one, back then I wasn't quite as creative as I am now, and it felt like for any idea that I had, like there was like a video game for it already that was doing it better than me. So it was like, why make a game that like somebody else has already done better? But I don't know. I feel like I could probably make some creative stuff now. I'm thinking about making some like video game adaptations of some of my solo games. But that's neither here and there. Board games. Why board games? Well, for one, I think board games are like rather accessible. Not necessarily in terms of like playability, like because you do have to like absorb the rules and hold all those rules in your head, and you have to like interpret. Like reading, there's like a very consistent like foundation of how reading works, so it's not like you hand somebody a book and they have to figure it out. Sometimes there is, like in terms of vocabulary and maybe language and stuff like that, but like all those problems are like tenfold more complicated than board games. So in that way they're not, but you don't need a computer to play a board game. You don't need electricity, you don't need drivers, you don't need to have like the latest hardware, you just need paper. You just need paper. So in that way, I think board games are more like accessible. But this one is actually a bigger deal to me. It's board games are more preservable. What I mean by that is that this ties back into what I was just saying. If you stuck like a board game and a video game into two separate boxes and waited 10 years and tried to pull them out and play them again, you would probably be able to play that board game in the same way as it was 10 years ago, barring like components physically decomposing or whatnot. But you might not be able to play that game, that video game, because like electronics also decompose to some extent, like they decay. And so, but like the thing is that like when the electronic breaks, sometimes it's a lot harder to like recover, at least in terms of like normies, I guess. Like preservation efforts for video games are a lot harder, and even when you go into the realm of like emulators and stuff like that, which is based, to be clear, like you're not always playing it the same way it was intended a long time ago. Like you don't have the same controllers, you don't have the same frame rate necessarily, you don't have the same screens. Like there's so many moving parts that are required for like the video game to work as intended that like it might just not be possible. Like the servers it depends on might be down, like the particular technology that it's dependent on might not be supported and maintained anymore. Like we find like old games and find old board games in caves from like thousands of years ago, but we're not going to find video games like thousands of years into the future, or if we do, we're not going to be able to like hook them up to like a TV and get them working, you know what I mean? So and you may wonder, why does that matter? Why do you need your game to exist 1,000 years from now? And I don't know. You're making me feel very vain right now. It's not that important to me that my game exists that long from now. But like, if if you were to create a piece of art, you would want it to like last, right? You wouldn't want it to like vanish in the ether because some DRM came out for Java that like ruined everything, right? Like, I don't know, you'd want there to be some longevity to your stuff that does not require active maintenance. I don't know, at least to me. There's something reassuring that I could like put this in the box, pull it out later. I don't have to be like, oh, I gotta update the drivers. I gotta like get the server back up and running. How many things are like deprecated that I gotta deal with? Like, so that's very appealing to me. But then, and then there's one last thing. I like the social aspect of board games. And now you could say there's a social aspect to video games. I played Dota and Team Fortress 2 for a long time. Those are very social, like, video games, and I quite like them a lot. But I think there's a different kind of social interaction that takes place with board games. There's something a little bit... It's a little bit, I don't know, it's like more unpredictable. I don't know how to describe it. Like, when you're playing the game of Space Team, and you explain the rules to somebody, and you get to the card that says that you have to like scream the floor is lava whenever somebody's touching the floor. Like, how one friend decides to interpret and express that card might be different from the way another one of your friends interprets and expresses that card. There's something more critical about the social component of like board games than there is with like most video games. I say most because there's some video games that are extremely that really put the social element front and center, and I think those are great. I can't think of it. Like, I'm thinking of Spy Party for some reason, but like it's with games. There's, because things kind of get like run through this digital like filter, it feels like some of that gets lost. Oh, Keep Talking Nobody Explodes. That's another extremely good social video game. So like, it's possible with video games, but I feel like it's easier with board games. I don't know if I'm maybe the art form of social interaction in video games has not been like developed, like has not been like fine-tuned yet, but I think I just took a wrong turn. Dang it. Yeah, maybe this is just a matter of people haven't like quite figured it out yet, but it just, I guess I feel like with board games I could condense the interactions down to those social components a lot more efficiently and concisely than I can with video games. Whereas like with video games, I feel like I have to build the tools to enable those social interactions. Whereas with board games, it's like those social interactions are enabled by default, and it's just, you're just imposing some like additional restrictions or like rules on top of it. It's like with video games, you have to enable the social interaction, and the board games, they're already there. You're like adding on to. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. But that's not true, because that's not really the case. So Keep Talking Nobody Explodes. Like, all of that is like there. I feel like the only restriction is that like one player is told not to look at the dang screen, and the other is told to look at a script, and it's I don't know. That's like almost like a board game. I don't know. Am I coming through? Am I making sense? Whatever. I'm done rambling. These are the reasons I work on board games instead of video games. I'm about to fix my wrong turn. I don't know. My brain was on autopilot. I was focusing on this conversation instead of the road. I swear I'm driving safely. Think of this as me having a conversation with somebody sitting next to me.